Hello, my beautiful internet friends. Yes, Neil, I will review Mr. Nanny on Monday. I will start it off, I will kick it off. Jesse, Waking Life. I don't disagree with you, which may surprise you. Waking Life is an incredibly pretentious movie, and I do understand why you don't like it. But for some reason, for me, it's like not pretentious in a way that bothers me, which is weird. And I don't know, I just find the movie interesting. I did have to watch it a couple of times before I kind of understood as well what was happening in the film. But I enjoy it, I think it's good. Not just for the animation aspect, but the animation in this is fantastic. It's a lot better than the animation for Scanner Darkly. Scanner Darkly is essentially just rotoscoping, which, if you don't know, is the process of animating over live action footage. And it doesn't take much liberties with it. There are obviously exceptions, like the bugs that crawl over the guy at the start, the suits that they wear that like have flickering faces, but apart from that, it's pretty much straight up rotoscoping. Waking Life takes a lot more, and because it's a dreamscape, I suppose, takes a lot more liberty with the rotoscoping, and it is, I'm sure, Jesse, you have to admit that it is a wonderfully and beautifully animated film. But yeah, I like it. I do admit that it is pretentious, unbearably so at some points, but I don't know, I just enjoy it. I love that you chose one of your friends as your influence as well. I thought that was really sweet and made me think, and I suppose I do consider a lot of my friends as major influences for me as well. They are undeniably several times more intelligent and talented than me in many areas, and I do take a lot of influence from them. Big scary man just walked past the window. I'm also looking forward to seeing the footage of your robot. I've seen it a couple of times before, obviously, on videos on your main channel, but I am very excited to see it because I don't have any friends who've built robots before. You're the first one, and I think that's incredibly exciting. The worst film I've ever seen is Michael Bay's Transformers. I couldn't stand it, and it's not like I went into it with a love of the cartoon. I was never really massively into the Transformers as a kid, so I went in just expecting a Transformers movie, and it is the worst piece of shit film I've ever seen in my life. It is so dreadful. The CGI is awful. Well, that's not entirely true. The modelling is awful in this film. You cannot tell what the characters are doing because their design is such a clusterfuck. Instead of like being massive blocky robots like they were, it's that weird kind of sinewy, wiry, panels everywhere kind of style to it, and it just doesn't make any sense. Megatron is hideous. Megatron has the worst character design I've ever seen in my life. Like Starscream was essentially a plane that was folded in half. It was stupid. And even then, whenever like they did something, there would be like dust everywhere, and you couldn't see a fucking thing that was happening anyway. The writing was dreadful. This is a note that I'd like to throw out to Michael Bay because I'm pretty sure he's making a sequel to Transformers. In the sequel to the movie about giant robots, make the film about giant robots. Two-dimensional 16-year-old boys are not interesting characters, especially when there are giant robots to be had. Also, the character development in the film is just so bad. Everyone in it is so two-dimensional, and by the end of the film you like genuinely don't care about any of the characters. Jazz gets killed, and even Optimus Prime doesn't give a fuck that Jazz is dead. He is. What is the line he says? We have lost an ally, but we've gained new ones. This is his friend, like one of his best friends. For thousands and thousands of years, these robots are ancient creatures. And he just couldn't give a fuck when he dies. So yes, Michael Bay's Transformers. Awful film. Neil, the first thing I have written down for you is, golly, you look spiffy. Because you did. Captain America, I have seen, and remember it being absolutely terrible. There's a kind of weird selection of Marvel Comics movies that nobody really remembers, and this was before comic book movies were like the big thing. There's a Fantastic Four movie that is just absolutely dreadful. The Thing is just like a big plastic mask, and Doctor Doom, you can't make out a word he's saying because he's constantly muffled by this mask that he's wearing. Incredible. One that I think people should remember is Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., starring David Hasselhoff. I liked I Am Sam. Again, I do understand why you didn't like it, but I think Sean Penn is absolutely amazing in that film. He's a brilliant actor in that film. I don't know, I thought it's a very sweet movie, I think, and it's not a film that I usually would like, but I think Sean Penn kind of saves it. You were talking about the Joker and how people go and see The Dark Knight. Yes, that does kind of frustrate me as well. The thing is that comic books have got like, the stigma attached to comic books I think is kind of gone now, that it's like this domain solely of like 40-year-old man living in his parents' basement. I think that's kind of gone, and it's become sort of pseudo kind of cool in a way, but I think it's kind of interesting that like it still hasn't like penetrated mainstream culture, and that mainstream culture is aware that comics exist and are actually quite happy for a change that comics exist, but haven't really taken to absorbing them. It's kind of like with video games. Video games had this very negative stigma attached to it for quite a long time, but now it's a very accepted part of our culture, and everybody games, but not everybody reads comics. When people find out that I read comics, they tend to be quite interested, and they tend to think that it's quite a cool, interesting thing. But at the same time, that doesn't like inspire them to go out and read comics themselves, which I think is very odd. It might be in the UK something to do with the fact that comics have to be imported, so you can only get them from specialist shops. So they're hard to get in Scotland, but people still like don't go out and like order them online or anything like that, and I think it's kind of interesting. I don't exactly know why it is though, so maybe you'd care to voice your opinions on that. You didn't ask a question, Neil. You didn't ask a question, man. Sometimes I think I may be the only one taking this seriously. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to ask you guys a question, but I just want you to tell us what films you want us to review, so that we can get them ordered and we can like get this kicked off a little faster. As for my life, I haven't had a rehearsal this week, which kind of annoyed me. Yesterday, I think, was Burns Night. We probably didn't even know it exists, but there is a very famous Scottish poet called Rabbie Burns, or Robert Burns, if you come from England. We celebrate his life and work with the most banal and hideously Scottish celebration possible. It's worth noting that I don't like Scotland. I hate that kind of haggis munching, whiskey slugging, kilt wearing shortbread tin image of Scotland. I don't think we do ourselves any favours by incorporating that into Burns Night. Also tonight, I've been asked by my college lecturer to go with Chris, who was in my last video, to tape a show, and I really don't want to do it because I have absolutely no idea what it is or where it is. I genuinely do not want to do it. Jesse, I'll see you tomorrow.